A trial began this week for two APD officers charged in the fatal shooting of James Boyd. You probably recall that Mr. Boyd was homeless and suffered from mental illness. He was killed in a standoff with APD in the foothills of Albuquerque in 2014. Now, Bernalillo County District Attorney Carrie Brandenburg initially charged Dominique Perez and Keith Sandy with first-degree murder, but Ms. Brandenburg was removed from the case and a special prosecutor reviewed it again and charged the officers with second-degree murder and other counts. Now, will this trial help or hurt public opinion about oversight of APD? I'm joined at the table this week by Merritt Allen from Vox Optima LLC, Rob Nicoleski from Watchdog.org, Stephen Spitz, host of New Mexico People, Places, and Ideas on KONM Radio, 89.9 on your dial, and Sophie Martin, an attorney and editor of DukeCityFix.com. Rob, many Albuquerque residents watching this trial. There's live streams up from KOET, KRQE. Lots of folks around the country are watching, actually. I'm getting emails from friends in other parts of the country. It's difficult as we sit here on this afternoon to talk about this trial. By the time we air, things might have happened. But so far, what have you seen that has surprised you in this trial? Anything that's come to light that surprised you so far? I keep calling it trial. Preliminary hearing.
Yeah,
my fault.
No, it really hasn't surprised me thus far. And to me, the real sticky wicket for the defense is the video. You know, because Sam Bregman, his defense attorney, and his other defense attorney, they can talk about, the threats, et cetera, the perceived threats, the fact that Mr. Boyd, and Mr. Boyd was not a Boy Scout. He had slashed, I believe, a female police officer with a box cutter before. He had a history of violence. But you can't, I think the difficult thing is trying to get past that video and the fact that he gets shot in the back. And I think that's the real difficult hurdle for the defense to get past. Sophie, interesting to follow up what Rob just said. We did have a move to dismiss, and that was not a surprise, certainly.
No, that's very much a standard standard thing to do when you're the defense. Right after the prosecution arrests a case, you basically go to the judge and you say, you know what, we feel that they have not presented a strong enough case here. And the hope from the defense's perspective is, okay, we can just end this here. We don't have to present our side. Because remember, it is really the burden of the state to prove the case here. It is not as much the burden is not so much on the defense, but here at this hearing stage, the burden is relatively low. They need to show that there is evidence that a reasonable person would feel suggests that these crimes had happened. They don't need preponderance of the evidence. They don't need beyond a reasonable doubt, which is really the criminal standard. Beyond a reasonable doubt is a high barrier. This is a much lower barrier. So we're not at trial, and it is relatively easy, I think, to get past that barrier for the prosecution in this case. Now, I want to say this.
Please.
There has been, over the past couple of months, some discussion over the choice to use, to go to the judge for these hearings as opposed to going through the grand jury process. And one of the things I don't think I'd really thought about before, but that I very much appreciate now, grand juries are closed. The public would not be seeing what was happening in that courtroom if we were at grand jury. Now, grand jury, we have a jury of Albuquerque citizens. It's not decided by a judge. By putting it before Judge Candelaria, they've opened the door for the community to see in a very transparent way the arguments that are being presented. And we're seeing what will likely be the arguments presented at trial. That's fascinating, and I think it's helpful for all of us as we seek to understand what's going on.
Good point there. Lots of good points there. Stephen, good to see you. Glad you're back here.
Great to see you, Jim.
Absolutely. We've heard a lot of interesting things so far. We've heard things about the speed of sound versus the speed of, bullet sounds. We've heard things about, we've seen some gruesome pictures so far about things, really intensely gruesome. It seems to me that what Rob was getting at, though, the shots fired, the slow motion bits, when you really, really slowed it down, which they did on Tuesday and watched. Did something change for you in that sequence when they really get it in super slow motion?
Well, first, I think Rob has put his finger on the key to the prosecution case, and when you're shooting someone when they're turning away in the back, and then you see it in slow motion, it looks that much worse.
Right.
They also had a crime reconstruction witness who testified, an expert witness. Plus, they have, I think it's Keith Sandy's testimony saying that he was going to shoot James Boyd in the effing, I was going to shoot that effing lunatic in the penis.
That's right.
This was before any shots were fired. So it seems to me that I can give you 5 million reasons why this case will go to trial, and that's basically the amount the city settled the civil case for. So, and the judge, although he's not supposed to know that, he obviously knows it. So I think it's, at this point, highly unlikely that the case won't go to trial. He dismissed the involuntary manslaughter charge.
Right.
But that seems completely inconsistent with the prosecution's case. The prosecution's whole case is when you aim a gun at someone and try to shoot at them, that's intentional.
Right.
Well, how do you get to involuntary manslaughter? So, you know, I don't think that really means a whole lot in the end.
Merrick, good to see you too as well. Randy McGinn, of course, is not in place of Ms. Brandenburg, but this is where things are now with Randy McGinn. It's interesting to watch her do her side of the business here. It's almost as if it's a very aggressive approach. Do you have a sense of what she's trying to establish tone-wise with this judge? What is she, in essence, trying to prove here, in your view, when you watch her do her thing?
Well, I think she's very much in prosecutorial mode, which is I am on the side of right. I'm on the side of the law. I've got advantages that the defense will not have, and she's taking advantage of that. What I really liked what Sophie said about it going for a judge instead of a grand jury, and I had not picked up on that before, because my first thought as I was watching this is, you know, we're just rehashing the bad old days of APD, and it's 2 years past, and we've come a long way. However, I think Sophie makes a good point that this does help restore confidence in the community, that this is the decisions are going to be made in a very open way, and we're working toward bringing justice to this. I mean, APD had the challenges, you know, leadership, talent, culture. I think leadership's come a long way. I think culture's come a long way, even though there's still some disconnects perhaps between the DOJ document and the union. And then talent. They've got rigorous new standards, and their challenge is attracting the talent and the recruits they need to keep this force going and keep this positive momentum going.
I appreciate you saying that. That gets, Rob, back to you again. Well, how I set this up at the beginning about public perception and everything. I agree with what Merrick just said. It feels like something's finally happening. Like we're getting towards some resolution somewhere instead of just this, we're stuck in orbit about something. You know, whichever side you fall on this, is that what the community just really needs at some point? Some sense of moving forward and closure on this to get to what Merritt's talking about?
I think so, although if there are no charges filed, then I think that,
good point.
I'm not saying that the judge will make the right decision or the wrong decision, but if there's no charges filed, I think that'll just keep the discussion going some more.
Yeah.
The other questions, too, are a couple of things that have come up in the trial is the fact that Officers Perez and Sandy were not separated immediately after this happened. So that opens the door for critics to say, well, these guys went ahead and got their story straight. They worked together. The other question, too, is that the video that has been seen the most often, that came from Officer Perez's body camera. But Officer Sandy's body camera video never appeared, and it still hasn't appeared. Right. So in many ways, APD's culture and its process is on trial here too.
What I was just going to say, one of the most interesting things that came out this week, though, was the video shot by a third party.
Right.
The eyewitness video, and I think the video is really interesting for a couple of reasons. And one is, you know, when you go in front of a jury, the jury is weighing, this is true of judges in bench trials as well, but the jury is weighing, do I believe that witness? Do I believe that witness? Well, they're going to believe themselves, right? And they get placed in the position of witness when they watch those videos, and they're going to feel naturally that their view is a legitimate view and that they've really seen the truth and they're expressing the truth. The other thing I want to mention is, you know, we have these two officers. I think chances are very good, and we've seen just touches of this already. Remember, they have two different attorneys. They're going to be telling two different stories of what happened on that day. Even if and I'm sure there has been conversation and collaboration between the two attorneys, ultimately, each attorney has his obligation to his own client. We may see different outcomes for those two individuals, and we shouldn't be surprised if that happens.
Interesting. Stephen, you know, I'm glad Rob mentioned the camera. You know, by their law, so to speak, you're supposed to turn it in almost immediately, or immediately. And one did, the other didn't, and the camera gets wiped in essence.
And were there other officers who also had cameras, and we
that
have
were
nothing
not turned
from them?
on, right?
We have nothing from them.
Exactly, and this gets to Sophie's bigger point here. This really is a video trial, isn't it? It's one of the first trials that you can really think of where I appreciate what you said. We're in the seat of people here, just like everybody in the courtroom is, aren't they? It's fascinating.
It's very, very powerful evidence. But, and I think it's concerning that Chief Eden said he's, quote, still investigating why those videos weren't turned in.
That's right.
And that he had never read the police report, the final police report on the shootings. Here is a game-changing incident, according to the mayor. It's when he invited the DOJ in.
Right.
And the chief of police isn't reading the final police report. And I just want to mention two other things. There was a shooting within the last week. Now, apparently, this individual may have had a gun or may not, but he was killed. There was a shooting in May of both young Hispanic men on the south side. This guy's on 3 forms of life support. His car was peppered with bullets. Okay, that's what the DOJ says you shouldn't be doing. I guess I would disagree with Merritt. I don't really see the APD as having come a very long way on this. And I think it's very concerning. I think the mayor needs to take some steps because I think he's doing exactly what he did with Chief Schultz. He's just backing the chief, and I don't see a lot of progress with the APD.
The police union is a big problem. I mean, the biggest impediment to the DOJ reforms is the police union, who are pushing back on lapel camera use, body cameras. They're pushing back on punishment for that. They don't like this, and that to me represents the root of the culture. You can bring in new people, you can do everything you can with leadership, but if the union won't get behind you and try and change the culture, you're going to have a tough time.
But police forces have been reformed. I mean, there are a whole bunch of police forces that have been turned around, and they all have unions.
They
all have unions.
But
so
we have a unique one.
Yeah. Please.
Just want to jump in because I've heard that in defense of Chief Eden that he wasn't able to read the report because there's an internal affairs investigation.
It's a process.
So that's why he hasn't read the report.
Up next, Albuquerque Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Luis Valentino talks about challenges and opportunities right now in the state's largest district.